Hi, and welcome to Getting Started with SEO. We're going to take a kind of a high overview of the basics of creating a successful SEO program. And by the time we're finished, we should have about 90% of what it takes to put together that successful program. So let's start out with a definition of SEO. And basically, so what is SEO and why do I need it? SEO, in essence, is a marketing discipline, and it is focusing on what's called organic searches. So, in other words, if you go to Google or Bing and you're looking for some information and you start typing in a search, that is considered organic, and that is opposed to a paid search that show up at the top. Now, one of the interesting things about that is that it covers both the technical and the creative elements of an SEO program. And what it's designed to do is to increase awareness in search engines and drive traffic to your site. But typically, a good SEO program is just focusing on the fundamentals. So let's focus on kind of a fun fact, and I hope you're sitting down for this. So the question is, how many individual web pages does Google index? So this is going to be kind of a reality check. So this is as of 2016, and the answer is over 130 trillion pages. So let that sink in for a minute. So that's kind of your competition. When somebody is searching for some information that you have and you want to provide to them, you're in competition with over 130 trillion pages. Now, I don't want that to be overwhelming because focusing on the fundamentals is going to get us to where we want to go. So let's start by talking about your site name and then page title. So in this example, we're working with a site called Brandon's Baseball Cards. That is what you want to name your site. You want to give your site a good, concise, descriptive title, and then each page within is going to have its own unique name. Now, most content management systems will allow you to customize your page and also your site by default. So take advantage of that. A couple of good tips for good titles is, make sure that it accurately describes the page content. Second thing is make sure that you create unique title tags for each page. Each page should have its own title, and then make sure that they are relatively brief, not overly brief, but also very descriptive. So at a glance, when a user and a potential visitor does a search, what they're going to see on the search engine results page will be something like this, and they can easily determine, yes, this is what I'm looking for. So along with that, the other thing that we want to focus on are what is called the URL structure. So in the case of Brandon's Baseball Cards, if he has a page on, say, Hank Aaron Rare Baseball Cards, this URL at the end is not going to tell the potential visitor, much less the search engine, what this page is about. So what you want to do is use some very simple and easy to understand URLs, and that goes with naming your page. Now, if the page that you are creating is about your business and it's about us, make sure that you use two separate words and that they are separated by a hyphen. Now, this also includes if you have other resources on your page, for example, a Word document for somebody to click on or a PDF. Next is taking the time to put together a very solid and well thought out navigation structure. So plan out your navigation based on your home page first. Most of the time, this is where people will start their visit on your site is going to be the home page. Now, this isn't always going to be the case, but most of the traffic is going to start on the home page, which is where you want to have some of your general content. Now, the next step is to get traffic further into your website and driving further user engagement. So the information that people are looking for needs to be readily available and obvious. And the next thing is that the flow of the navigation should be very natural so that people go from here's the main category and here is the subcategories within. It is also important to try to maintain what's called a two-tier navigation. And by two-tier, I mean at the top of the page, there's going to be a main category, and then underneath will be one subcategory. So all of your pages and all of your navigation is going to be very easy for your user to follow. Now, the next topic I want to cover is something that if you pull nothing else from this, this would be the main topic, and that is, and I'm sure you've heard it before, content, content, and content. If you focus on content, you will do most of what you need to do for successful SEO. Now, according to Google, creating compelling and useful content will influence your SEO more than any other single factor. So in case you missed that, let's go over this again. According to Google, creating compelling and useful content will influence your SEO more than any single factor. So let's focus a little bit about what it takes to create some good, solid, compelling content. The best thing to do is to always think backwards, okay? And what I mean by that is what type of content are your visitors actually looking for? And then the next question is, do I provide that? The second thing is what's called your voice or the writing style. So if you are, say an attorney or a very formal business, well, you want to talk in a more formal and confident kind of tone. And if your business is kind of casual and friendly, or if it's authoritative, you want to make sure that you use that voice, and then make sure that you use that voice throughout your website. The next thing is what search words or phrases, and this is sometimes referred to as keywords, might users enter on a given topic, right? So if somebody's going to be sitting down and looking for Hank Aaron baseball cards, what words will they use? And then you need to make sure that those words and those phrases are contained within your content. A couple of other additional tips on this is always create content for your users and not search engines. Search engines are very wise as far as trying to trick them or, trying to do little games to increase traffic. One of them is what's called keyword stuffing. So in the example of Hank Aaron baseball cards, if the word Hank and Aaron and baseball and cards are used over and over, search engines will catch on to that. The other thing is for the end user, it's just not going to sound natural, it's not going to flow, and it's not going to be as impactful as you probably want it to be. Also, make sure that you're checking spelling and grammar every time. And then let's focus on creating some fresh content maybe weekly. Now, that doesn't mean you need to create a new page every week, but kind of update your content. And this is especially true on some of your most important pages that you want visitors to go to. Sometimes it's just a matter of rephrasing maybe a paragraph or a sentence, perhaps switching out an image or a couple of images just to kind of keep things fresh. Anchor text is another very useful strategy in SEO to get people further involved and going to additional pages on your website. So anchor text is, somewhere within a sentence or a paragraph, you may highlight a word or two and use that as an anchor to take people to either another page or to another resource. So one of the things to avoid is to use the words click here. Now for the user within the context of that paragraph, that might make perfectly good sense. But for a search engine, when they see the words click here, it's not going to have any relevance for them. So make sure that you use descriptive words and meaningful words when you're using anchor text. One of the things that search engines, and especially Google and Bing's and the top search engines, they're focusing on page load speed. And basically it's people want information and they want it now. And right now about 47% of visitors are expecting pages to load within 2 seconds. After 3 seconds, about 40% of users will abandon that and go on to a different search item. So it's important that you focus on the things that are within your control when it comes to page load speed. And one of those is to focus on images. Make sure that you're using the smallest dimension and file size that is appropriate for that content area. So for example, if one of your content areas is about 400 pixels wide, don't use an image that is about 2,000 pixels wide. That's going to add a lot of unnecessary weight and weighting for the page to load. Now also for videos, make sure that you're using a service such as YouTube or Vimeo to display your videos. I'd like to spend some time talking about what are called heading tags. Now, just like in newspapers, the main heading on a newspaper page is going to be towards the top and it's going to be in big, bold letters. The same thing applies on your web pages. Every web page that you have on your site should have a main heading to tell the user, hey, this is what my site is about. And heading tags are used to kind of emphasize the important text or the important content on different sections of your page. So there are 6 head tags that go from H1 down to H6, so the most important down to the least important. And headings visually create a very nice hierarchical structure for the content and then help the visitor go through your site to figure out, okay, what's important and what topics are being covered on this page. And the other thing to keep in mind is don't overuse headings too much. Each page should, as a rule of thumb, have its own H1 tag and then the other tags sprinkled, as kind of a headline to a specific content area or article that you have on that page. And again, each page should have its own H1 tag. And last, we want to cover just a couple of odds and ends on successful SEO. One of them is many people are some way disabled. They could have a visual handicap and they need some aids to help them experience your web page. One of the great ways to do that, there's an opportunity on every image that you have to put what's called an alt tag, which is basically alternative text. And the text itself should be descriptive. And for those that might be visually impaired, they use a device called a screen reader, which does read the website for them. And as they come across images or as they come across a file name, if it has an alt tag, it will actually read that for them so they can get a greater experience on what's going on the page. Another thing to keep in mind, and I think is a good area of focus, is what's called internal page linking. So this is a way of adding links on one of your pages that is going to link to another page, and it's a way to drive user engagement. It's a way to get more information for the visitor and make it a much richer experience. And then just kind of, I guess, what we would call some bonus styling tips is make sure that you're using for a font size on regular text of at least 16 pixels. This is for readability, and this is especially true on mobile devices such as smartphones and tablets. And again, with mobile devices, if you have a link on the page, something that they will touch to link to, make sure that that space is at least 48 pixels by 48 pixels. In that way, they won't accidentally hit either another link or have a bad experience. And lastly, I want to call attention to what's called call to action areas. Now, these can be buttons or large text, something that kind of visually stands out on the page that asks people to do something. So it could be join here, a join here button, or click here to subscribe to our newsletter. There's all kinds of different ways that you can ask people to take some kind of action. So thanks for watching, and I hope you were able to pull out some tips and tricks for a successful SEO program.